Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome to Superpower User, a tech YouTube channel focused on computer builds, hardware reviews, and tutorials. Today we're going to be taking a look at the newly released MX Master 3 mouse from Logitech and doing an unboxing and giving you my first impressions, and then comparing it with the MX Master 2S and MX Master 1 mouse that I've got here. So let's get to it. So originally I tried to buy this off of Amazon and it was showing a 1 to 2 month lead time for delivery of this item. And so I drove off to Best Buy to try to look for, to purchase this. And apparently this was so new that they didn't even have shelf space for it. And apparently this was just sitting in the back. And it took them almost a half an hour to figure this out. Even though the computer system said that they had two in their store, they couldn't find it. But finally, I guess I've got it in my hands now. The box itself is very slim, very small. Actually, when I first got it in my hands, I thought this was a box for the MX Anywhere mouse, the smaller travel size mouse. It looks like Logitech has switched to the more compact packaging. You don't have the flip open packaging anymore. You can't actually see the mouse unless you take it out of the box. So basically inside the box, you've got the MX Master or MX logo and the Logitech logo. And in here, you've got the mouse. You can take that out, and the mouse itself. There it is. So let me just put that down. You also, of course, have the unifying receiver right here. And that's pretty much it. So in terms of documentation, it says here, MX keys. Oh, so this is just a advertisement for their new MX keyboard line that go well, according to Logitech, that goes well with the mouse. And also in here, you've got a charging cable and some user manual documentation. We can put that aside. So really, this is the new MX Master mouse. And on the back here, we've got a sticker that says the on-off switch, and then you can either pair up by USB or by Bluetooth. And then it also has the easy switch capability with a little button to be able to switch between your computers and switch your inputs. So let's take this off. And really, this mouse is ready to be used. All right, so first impressions of the mouse. And let's first talk about form factor. Right off the bat, it's very noticeable that the MX Master 3 mouse that I've got here, of course this is the 2 and the 1, is that it is a taller mouse. This section right here protrudes much more than the MX Masters, the older MX Master. The end result is that it sits in your palm much more, and your hand kind of rolls off a little bit. So I kind of like the way it feels compared to this. I usually palm my mouse more than using the claw grip, but you can palm it and it feels pretty good in the hand. The second thing that I noticed is that the MX Master 3 mouse is slightly narrower than the older MX mouse. And what I mean by this is you can see here the area up top is narrower, and effectively you see right here this section here on the older MX mouse is it cuts in a little bit more. So effectively the way I usually hold the old mouse is I have the two fingers sitting on the side of the mouse, and you can see here I try to keep the fingers off the table when I move the mouse around so that I'm not dragging my fingers on the table. With the new mouse, because it's a little bit narrower, I have to try a little harder, or I have to lift my fingers a little bit more to get them off the table as I move the mouse around. It's not a big deal, it's not a huge issue, but it is noticeable because this is a little bit wider. Now, my hands, of course, are medium. They're not super large, but they're medium, average to large-ish. If you have very large hands, of course, you're going to probably dwarf this mouse. And if you have a little bit smaller hands, it's not going to matter that much. But overall, the form factor, very familiar, a little bit more, a little slimmed down, and it's not necessarily a bad thing. The other major difference that you can see up right off the bat is the front forward and backward button. So with the forward and backward button, there's a lot of people who complained about having to reach back for these buttons. Personally, I never had an issue with these because I would just kind of roll my thumb up and use the side of my thumb to be able to push these buttons, and it was kind of easy. Though with the new mouse, they have shifted the forward and backward button to down here so that you can reach them easier with the front part of your thumb. And it is certainly easier to reach. However, I just noticed now that the forward and backward buttons have a little bit difference in texture or the way it feels when you push it down. For example, the forward and backward buttons on the older mouse are a little bit more crisp. Basically, the older mouse buttons, forward backward buttons, have a little bit less travel in them, while the new ones are a little bit more mushy. Well, these are a little bit more crisp. The mushiness, it's not too bad actually, but it is a little bit different. The next thing that you notice is, of course, the texture and the way the side scroll and the main scroll feel. This feels like a solid chunk of metal. Both of these feel like a solid chunk of metal, while this has the rubberized textured grip. Effectively, what you feel is that the scroll wheel and the mouse wheel and the side scroll are much more solid, and it feels like you're rolling around a chunk of metal, a much more premium feel. Now, the big claim to fame for the MX Master 3 mouse is the way the scroll works. So they're calling it the Mag Speed scroll wheel. It's a completely different technology from past scroll wheels. So, in the older scroll wheels were ratcheted systems where with enough inertia it would let go and let the wheels freely spin, and then it would lock in, and you could feel the individual clicks as it ratchets. This one, on the other hand, is electromagnets, and as you scroll the individual ticks, it feels like a magnet sticking and letting go as you go through the individual ticks. I think that's the best way to describe this, because it's a very smooth feeling. And sometimes when you have a magnet that catches metal and releases, that's kind of how this feels as you scroll through. And once you go into free spinning mode, that's when the magnet completely lets go and it just goes and goes and goes. The biggest difference between these two, of course, this is much more smooth and much more quiet than the older one. And so now I'll give you a sample sound test of the MX Master 2S, the way it ratchets and the way it free spins. And now the MX Master 3 as I scroll. See, this one's almost completely silent compared to the 1 and 2. And then the middle click button. The middle click button is actually pretty similar. The major difference is, of course, the scroll wheel. Another major difference between the older mice and the newer one is that the newer one has USB-C charging. This is really nice because most devices, most peripherals have gone to USB-C now, and I could probably use the USB-C cable for all my other stuff to charge as well. And if I remember correctly, they also quote a quick charge. Since it's USB-C, it says a quick charge of 1 minute gives you 30 minutes of use time, and a full charge is good for 70 days. Now, I do notice that the MX Master 2S that I've got here does last for very, very long time, weeks on end, much longer than the MX Master 1. And if the 3 is really anything like the older 2, then it should last a very long time. I do really like the idea of being able to do a quick charge of, just a few minutes to be able to last through the day, and at the end of the day, plug it back in to charge all the way through. It's just, if you're used to having a wireless mouse, plugging the wire back in, it feels really restricting. The bottom here is actually really similar. You have your 1, 2, and 3 computers that it can connect to via Bluetooth or the receiver, and it's basically the same as the 1, 2, and 3 are all basically the same. Another small difference between the older one and the newer mouse is the way that 1 and 2 have a pointed end in the front, while the 3 is a little bit more rounded off. Now, I don't know if it's because they wanted to make plugging this in a little bit easier, so that it doesn't get in the way, or if they're just changing things up just for the heck of changing it up, but just a small little difference. Now, as for the material and the texture of the mice, the material feels very similar, but the texture is a little bit different. So on the older mice, you have a flat, smooth top, and you have a side thumb area that's kind of has a diamond or polygonal weave to the side. The new one, however, is more of a wave shape, and it kind of, the wave goes from the thumb area all the way up to the palm area. Small difference. It doesn't feel, better or worse. It's just little differences. Now, one difference I did notice was the thumb button. So for the older one, the thumb button, you just kind of push down and it registers the thumb click. With the newer mouse, it's a little bit more difficult to push down and have it register. It still works very similar in the same way, but you can see here, you kind of have to push into it a little bit more right in the middle to get it to work. You can't just push down and have it work. On the older one, you kind of just push down, and it just registers, and it just registers. This, you kind of have to get it right in the middle to have it click. I don't know if it's to prevent accidental thumb activation of this button. Sometimes I do find myself accidentally clicking down when I'm just, unintentionally doing it. Maybe it's intentional, maybe it's not intentional, I don't know. It's just a little difference. Now, the last thing I wanted to mention was the moving of the charge LED from the bottom here to the top. On the older mouse, of course, you have the 3 little green charge LEDs, and it's a very fluorescent green light. You can see that right there. On the new mouse, you have a single light charge LED that's up here, and it's got a lot smoother, less fluorescent color to it. It's a little bit more green compared to the green-yellow of traditional devices. So some closing thoughts. I've used every single MX mouse ever since the mid-2000s, from the first MX Revolution to the Performance MX to these MX Master mice. And this one is probably the best one yet. It's slightly different, slightly upgraded, slightly modified, tweaked here and there from the older one. And it's a little bit more compact and a little bit lighter in the hand. But generally, it still has all of the great features that can be found on the old mouse integrated into the new one. So If you currently have a MX Master 2 or even a 1 and you like that mouse and it's going strong for you, hey, you know what? Just you can stick with the older mouse and be completely content and just keep on using that. But if you are in the market for a new mouse or you need a second one and you like the way that the old ones feel, I would absolutely recommend picking this up because this is just more of the same great performance of the Logitech MX Master Series mouse. Yeah, I don't know. I can't think of anything else to say because really, it's a great product. It's a recommend for me. So anyway, if you found this video useful in the comparison, you learned something from the comparison, make sure to hit that like button because it really helps with the channel, with the whole YouTube algorithm thing. So I really appreciate it when you guys do that. Anyway, I'll catch you guys in the next one. See you guys.